Yes, it is. Welcome back to Grit Gym. This is it's kind of becoming the Adam and Rachel show, isn't it? Adam and Rachel show. Rachel's not so sure about it, but you guys requested Rachel to be here, and so she is back. Today we're going to talk, by the end of the day, hopefully we give you guys some decent perspectives on leadership from our standpoint anyway, and some different things that you can take away, because no matter what you think, you are a leader in some capacity. If you're a parent, you're a leader. You're a teacher, you're a leader. You have people that you work with, you have friends, you are a leader on some level, and a leader isn't always the person that just chirps a lot. Sometimes the leader is by example, sometimes the leader is the person who doesn't do the thing that everybody's charging in to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and the reason we come to you, timer is gone off. That means that, and actually this was my go. I did the water. Can I do it this time?
Sure.
Can you critique me and tell me if I do it wrong? I'm pretty sure I do this right. So if you have this little tiny miniature French press, because Rachel likes everything little tiny, so you pull it up to let all of the beans fall.
Yeah.
And then you put. Did I mess it up?
You do it.
Then okay. And then you push it all the way down to filter them out, and then you pour your coffee out. Is that right? Is that pretty? That seems pretty simple.
About right.
All right. So Rachel started in a coffee shop, so I don't know anything about coffee, but Rach knows a lot. And apparently that timer just went off to tell us that the coffee was ready. Do you want to tell them anything about this particular blend of coffee?
This is medium roast, right?
This is the bluesy one, yeah.
Okay, so it's medium roast. I can't taste it. You have a higher tolerance for heat now.
Rachel won't be able to taste it for a little while because apparently I like my coffee super hot, and Rach is like, no, this is terrible because it's burning me and I can't taste it. So we're gonna have to wait a little while for her. From person to person, why? I have a friend who he can we were all eating pizza one time, and I could barely even hold the pizza in my hands. Like, it was so hot, it was unbearable, and he just reached over, grabbed it, and took a bite of it like it was nothing. And
I don't know, maybe it's just
I consider myself a fairly high pain tolerance, and that was crazy. So I think it didn't hurt him. I think he just impervious to heat.
Yeah.
Let me try. See if it's gonna burn you.
I know it will. I can feel it.
Did you see that courage there? Did you that was not
I
that was
can
not
look
hot
at it
at all.
and know that
I think it's just person to person, but courage is a lot of what we're talking about today, because we're talking about leadership. I think courage goes into a lot, and even in our relationship, like if you guys are looking at from a courageous standpoint, because I find courage to just be one of the most attractive characteristics that anybody have, and I know that you guys think that I'm going to be talking about Rachel right there. No, I'm talking about me. Do you know how much courage it took to walk across the room and talk to a girl that looks like this? It took massive courage. That's leadership, right?
I don't know if maybe that's your definition, but
no, that is not my definition of leadership. But the number of people who have asked me how I pulled this off is pretty staggering at this point. Seeing you on here, do you guys like seeing Rach blush? But what do you think? What are your big, you're in a leadership position. You've been in a leadership position for 6 years. I've had employees at Grit Gym for 6 years now. How long have you had employees underneath you?
I don't know. I think you don't even have to have employees underneath you to be in a leadership position. It's just like you kind of come to a realization that you need to take charge, otherwise it's not going to go your way.
Yeah, and you've got two little sisters that are drastically younger than you. Do you think that? Yeah.
So I was the oldest sibling.
Yeah.
So
naturally,
I was naturally. I don't know if you call it bullying. I didn't really bully. I just like to talk them into.
That's not bullying. Bullying is like.
Well, I mean, it wasn't bullying. Like, I didn't beat the crap out of them and make them feel like crap.
Yeah, bullying is like imposing your will against their well-being.
Yeah, I was just in a position where the age was the only difference, and I was willing to use that as my leverage to get my way.
I don't know. It sounds like from all the stories you told me, I think you were just a prankster in disguise.
Yeah, I just
like
to have fun.
But that's leadership in itself, because you're teaching them. To me, leadership is really, especially when it comes to kids, is just you're being someone is more of an example than you're. You're not there to boss them around. You're there to show them some cool stuff along the way, to me. Like with my nieces and nephews, like I'll call them out when it's time, but for the most part, I'm just like, here's some cool stuff that I know. You guys can hopefully learn from it.
Yeah, it's also about being curious and willing to do what other people aren't willing to do. Trying out new things. And you kind of learn along the way.
But what about like classic leadership positions? So with like, for instance, Rachel had how many employees do you have underneath you right at this time for your job? Classic leadership role. You're their boss. I hate that term, but
I do too. I don't feel like I'm their boss.
I
just feel like they can come to me and I can tell them when they're doing something wrong or how to do it better. And I don't know. I don't like to say like I'm the boss of you. I mean,
no, it doesn't
being
work
a boss
out well.
it's kind of like being called bossy. For me, it's kind of like, oh, thank you, because like I rarely feel like that. I rarely feel like I am. I mean, when I was younger, it was easier because I was the older one, but now I feel like everybody gets different experiences along the way.
Yeah.
Like you can gain your place in the world not based off age anymore. It's based off your accomplishments, your experiences, your seniority, whatever you want it to be. I don't like the word seniority.
I don't either. I don't like the word boss. I like the word leader. I don't mind being the leader at Grit Gym, but I know that like you lead from more of a passive standpoint and I
try
lead
to
from
come
more
from
of
an understanding.
And I come at people like super assertive, and it almost seems like an attack, but I never intend for it to be that way. And I'm very rarely mad, but apparently I come off that way. And obviously, like, if we are talking responsibility, that's on them, not on me. But at the same time, we're trying to accomplish something. So if the message doesn't get across, then it doesn't get across. And that's still on me.
So that's another thing. Communication is really big.
Yeah.
Like, beating around the bush, sometimes you might think that you're being nicer or the good cop. But a lot of times that screws me over in the end.
Yeah,
and if
totally
the more blunt that I am and the more just to the point and in getting my message across, the easier it is and the more likely that they'll actually understand and accomplish what
Which
they
isn't easy to
accomplish.
do. I think it's really hard for people to be clear. Do you think it's hard for you to be clear in most scenarios?
Sometimes.
And I mean clear, like blunt, direct, very clear. This is what I want you to do. Not, this is, if you feel like doing this, then you can do it. You know, the really soft, beat around the bush.
Yeah.
Oh, would you like to? This is how it has to be done.
I'm not.
And I'm like, this is a few of the differences here. Rachel, very laid back, very easygoing, very go at your own pace. Me, I'm like, Mr. Particular, let's move it, let's go. And I think like I kind of fight that side of me a little bit. I have to kind of tone it down a little bit, and you have to kind of raise it up a little bit when you do it. But I could be wrong there. Am I
if
inaccurate?
You are not able to get them to do what needs to be done, you end up doing it yourself.
Yes.
So
and sometimes
it's probably a learned thing.
Yeah.
You learn after a while, after doing their job for them over and over and over again, that it's gonna tear you down and it's gonna make you resent them. And it's I'm not coming off as like I'm not an expert in it because I learn from them every single day. I learn from you every day, like how I interact with everybody. There's something I learn every single day as far as being a leader.
What about confrontation? When do you decide to confront, and how do you decide to confront?
Sometimes you're just forced to. Like if it's hurting the business, if it's hurting your relationship, or if they're being negative and spreading negative energy amongst everybody, then it's a problem. And if you don't confront it and they continue to do it and do it and do it, they're not going to change their behavior because they don't even really. Some people don't even really realize. I don't realize when I'm being negative sometimes.
Can you avoid confrontation, or can you only delay it?
I think confrontation is maybe kind of an aggressive way to say it. It's just like
Well, how would you say
confrontation? People think of it as negative, but I think of it as a straightforward conversation.
See, I look at it like it's a gift. I think it's a gift. And like when people confront me about something, especially if it's like a customer confronting me, like, hey, you don't have this, like a lot of people would be like, fuck you, like who are you to say?
No,
I love that. Like problems are fantastic because then I have something to solve. Then I have something, that. Like,
and you need to hear it because they are just the ones that are coming to you with the problem.
Exactly. There's 1,000 other people that didn't say it.
Yeah, I'm sure
there's
a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, and you don't always want to hear it. You don't always want to hear that you're doing something wrong, and you don't always believe it sometimes too. But just to have that person put that in the back of your head, it kind of gives you a new sense of direction on where to solve it. Well, if you hear it once,
what? If you hear the
if you hear a comment about like you're doing something wrong,
So someone's coming and confronting me, saying I'm doing something wrong, and I don't get it. I don't go ahead and solve it. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying they come to you. You can kind of do what you want with it. You can fix the problem right there, or you can wait till another person comes back and says the exact same thing. Like they're helping you realize that there's something missing.
Wow. Oh yeah.
And it needs to be solved.
100%. Yeah.
And there might not be an urgency right away.
Yeah. So how many times do you have to confront somebody before you're no longer the asshole and they're now the asshole?
Well, it should be once, but like I know
should be once,
I'm not
one time. So after the first time that you confront, because that's what I think. Like after you confront somebody 1 or 2 times, you say, "Hey."
I didn't finish.
Oh, my bad. Thank you for saying so.
So I think once, and I can give you the benefit of the doubt and be like, well, maybe they didn't hear me correctly. Maybe I didn't come across in the right way, and I wasn't clear with how I said it. But then if I do it again, and they still don't do it, then I can be like, you know what? Screw you. Like, now I can come at you with a little bit more attitude, and I don't have to be as empathetic because I was very clear. I said it twice, and now we have a problem that either you need to solve it or we need to go in a different direction.
Yeah. And, I mean, there's a lot of different things here. So you could have, so for me, I train adults at the gym, so I'm the leader of those people getting to their goal. So I have to confront them on some level, otherwise they won't get to their goal. So I can't afford to attack ever. And I couldn't do that with an employee either, but a lot of people do that. I mean, we've had a lot of discussions about this, whether it's an attack and it's combative at the person where you're angry and you're really lashing out at them because they didn't do what you said them to, or if you're making a discussion and you're finding mutual understanding. What are your thoughts on that?
Wait, this is with an employee or with a...
Yeah, you've told them 3 times, they're still not doing it, and you're fiery, and you're just like, I'm pissed, and I'm ready to rip their head off with an employee.
Well, at some point there has to be...
Or your kid, or...
I mean, yeah, kids are different a lot of the time because, especially if they're your own, they kind of like to push the boundaries. You're not.
I think everybody likes to push boundaries.
I mean, yeah, you're comfortable with your family.
You have boundary
but
stoppers,
if it's your boss,
time vampires.
Then, like, this is your job. You're getting paid to do this job.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody is perfect and is going to do 100% of what you say 100% of the time. But if you are very clear in the beginning, also, like, another thing I notice is creating the habit of doing it the right way right off the bat is a great way to start, because if you like change up the rules halfway or like 3 weeks into it,
or you don't tell them right up front, that's basically the equivalent to
just like
the rules.
you're just like, they're not doing that right, I should tell them.
But you don't, and then 3 weeks in, and then it's like, God damn it, I've been doing this wrong the whole time.
It's a learned habit by then, and then it's even harder you have to.
That's why, like, with people, like, movement patterns are so hard with people. Like, when we get new people out of the gym, I take this long, progressive time figuring out the little minutia of every little thing and making things so simple so that Oh, is it that good?
It's fine.
Did I do all right?
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, I've got improvement to do. All right, so you're saying stay positive, and the confrontations are a good thing, and that you have to be as clear as possible. It's clear as day. It's clear as a bell.
Clear in the beginning.
In the beginning.
If you can, like, as clear as possible. I don't know. It's like talking to a child sometimes. It's like, do you understand that? Repeat that. It's almost like that. It's
so
like,
hard to do.
Do that word, like, you don't...
what's the phrase I use? I'll say, I don't always explain things well. Can you repeat back to me what you think you heard? And I always feel so stupid saying that. But them saying it back to me, a lot of the time, it won't be even close to what I just said.
Well, yeah, you could say, does that make sense? Or do you understand? And who's going to say, no?
Yeah, no one's
over and over.
Yeah, they're going to be like, no, I didn't understand you.
Yeah, and especially when you're teaching somebody to do a job, sometimes you skip over the little teeny basic things that kind of build on that skill.
Yeah.
If you don't have the teeny basic things down, you won't ever get to like being a pro at it. Whether it's like what I do or what you do or what anybody does in school. Like if you don't know addition, you're not going to be able to do calculus. I mean, if you don't learn it well.
Right.
And like, yeah. That's just how it is.
Yeah, a lot of these things are just very top level, I mean, very conceptual things on leadership that I don't, but I think like the underlying thing we were talking about courage up front is like you have to do this for yourself first. And that's my thought anyway. Like the quote, a leader has muddy boots. Like the leader has to go first out into that scenario and experience what the person underneath them has experienced, but also a leader must be able to follow. Also, a leader must have the courage to go ahead and confront. I think it's much harder to confront than it is to be confronted. And it sucks to be confronted most of the time.
Yeah.
Like even somebody that tries to talk themselves into loving being confronted, I still don't like it. But it's a gift. But actually being the confronter, I find very difficult. What do you think?
I'm trying to think. I think, yeah, being the confronter, I'm trying to think which one's harder for me. I think, yeah, being the confronter. Oh my God,
you have to think about that? Race does not have to think about that.
I hate confrontation in all aspects.
But do you get to delay it or do you get to avoid it?
It's a great thing. It's a great, like, you can say all day, like, oh, I just don't like confrontation. It's like, well, you're going to have a lot of problems.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot of problems if you can't take criticism.
In every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm fairly new at, obviously. Yeah. But
well, and people like to think that like criticism and confrontation both carry very heavy negative connotations. Little alliteration there for everybody.
Yeah, but when you think of
like criticism and confrontation is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. And like criticism is really just education after the error instead of before the error. It's the same thing. It's just on opposite ends of the error.
A different viewpoint.
Yeah.
Different way of viewing that word.
Yeah. So, like, when it starts with you, what do you got to do to be a good leader?
I have to know what I'm doing and be assertive and be able to do my job as well as watch them and watch them do their job and be able to confront when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So
for a passive person, does that sound, that sounds like to me that sounds like exactly like what Rachel needs to do. Like me, I need to create a safe place where, because I'm I'm already so assertive and so go for it, and so I think I take criticism extremely well, like extremely well. So I don't like it, but I take it well. So like I tend to think that other people are going to do it the same way. Like they want the criticism, that they like ultimately deep down they want it, but I don't think everybody does. So maybe like a lot of time I'll just throw it out there and people will be like, oh my God, then they'll shut down. And I'm like, ah, shit. So I have to create a very safe place and start with the positive. Be like, you did this really well.
Sandwich.
It's a sandwich, yeah. Two positives with the criticism in the middle. Even if the criticism is a good thing, you still, you did this well. This could use some improvement, and you did this well.
I mean, yeah, I think that for as cheesy as that is, I think it really goes a long way.
I do too.
Some people just need to hear that they're doing something right.
Yeah.
And not just like,
I do think working with kids, like high school age kids, working with millennial age group, and working with kids, people older, I think everybody's just a big kid. So if you're watching this and you're an adult, I think ultimately you're just a little kid that's now larger. But you work with big kids, adults. Like there's some differences between them, you know. And you mostly work with like lead college age kids, and like to me, college age kids are just abysmal. Like I could just like the world could just do without them for the 4 years that they're in college. But like high school kids love structure, terribly easy to get along with. Anybody that says that they're not just hasn't given them the structure that they are asking for, and that's why they get walked over. And I find that adults. Like they don't need all like the older adults, they don't need as much sandwiching. They don't need like, oh, you did this well.
Oh yeah, the older adults.
Yeah, I think they dealt with a little bit more reality maybe.
I agree with that.
Especially moms. Moms are tough. Seriously, like if you have more than 2 kids, or you have 2 kids or more, like even if you have 1 kid, like moms are tough. They're so much more mentally strong than any of the Division I or professional athletes that I've ever worked with, or even Olympic athletes.
I would imagine it's not the easiest thing to do. So they probably had to exercise that mental.
Yeah, because it's not just about
part of their brain
pooping that kid out. It's I could have probably done without saying that one on air, but
I really want to slap this kid right now.
Exactly. Like if you have a teenager, if you have a kid that's 20 years old and you went 20 years without killing that kid, you have to have a certain amount of mental toughness, I think.
Yeah.
All right.
Are hard.
So toughness. We're going with toughness now.
Okay.
Be super tough as a leader, or be soft as a leader.
You gotta find a balance.
And that might balance. What do you mean?
It kind of might be different for.
See, I don't know if I even believe in balance. I think you should just stick with what you're good at.
Okay. So what do you mean by that?
Like playing to your strengths. Why would you why would you try to find balance?
Well,
or what do you mean by balance in the first place? That's what I should ask.
So you can't just be tough 100% of the time. Like you gotta show your soft side at some point. Otherwise, you're just not human. You're not relatable.
What about he's hard because he cares?
Yeah, but some people don't realize that's why you're being hard. You gotta show your soft side so that they can relate to you as a human rather than just like a tough boss or a tough dad.
Well, there's a difference. Like if you do it, does the
there's
intention
balance.
Matter? Like, no, like if they're just, I'm gonna be hard on you. But they do it from a place of caring versus doing it from a place of insecurity and just being a shitty person.
Well, then how does that look to the person that you're being tough to?
I think it can be confusing.
Exactly. So you gotta.
Like Janet and I have a really good relationship now. My mom, I call her Janet because at the gym it's really weird to be like, Mom, you're doing that wrong.
Mom, lift harder.
You never have to tell her that. But like she's strict. She was hard. She was like, and I'm thankful for that now. At the time, I was like, oh my God, leave me alone. But now, I'm so thankful that she was so hard on us.
Okay, well,
especially on me, because I think that she knew that I was going to have challenges that the other 3 were never going to have.
So that's why I think you need to remind, maybe your kids or whoever, just be like, I'm telling you this because I'm telling this because I care.
That's so hard to believe, though. Like, at the time, you're like, that's bullshit.
Well, they'll figure it out. You figured it out. I figured it out. We're not parents, but we do know the importance of relating to somebody and when, in everyday conversation. No matter how unreasonable someone is and how much you gotta relate to them to understand them.
That's a good point. Yeah.
You gotta put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah. The first, a lot of people don't think that sales is leadership, but sales is totally leadership. It's the first rule of sales is that you'll always agree up front. Why would you fight the other person's belief structure so that you can get on a relatable ground? You don't lie, You don't start your relationship based on a lie. You just agree. Like, the weather sucks. You're right, it does. You know, like, who are you to say that the weather doesn't suck to this person? You got to get on some kind of common ground.
Yeah, like find something that you can relate to.
Yeah. And
that way you're on their level, and you can kind of become, like, you don't want to be like their peer, but you want to be able to, like, especially younger children. Like, they see you as this adult, like, who doesn't know anything. They were never a kid. They, like, you know how many kids were just like, you don't know what it's like. And
I think that's so interesting. That. Yeah, like,
yeah, we're kids.
When you were a kid, you looked at adults and you're like, they don't know what they're talking about. They were never a kid. And then when you become an adult, you go, oh my God, I remember doing that. I remember doing that. I remember thinking that. And when a kid spouts back at you, like, you have no idea what I'm going through. It's like, yeah, I was there. I know what you mean. So that's a really interesting topic.
Okay, so yeah, that's what I meant. But like the balance, like, you want to be tough and you want to, like, give them that direction, but maybe give them an idea of where you're coming from. Like, I did this before. I'm your parent. I want what's best for you. I'm your boss. I know how this goes. I've done it before. I started at the bottom too. I know that you're going to have a lot of grief, but if you do it this way, it'll save you a lot of.
What if you told them why you were doing it instead of like a
why you're being tough?
Yeah, being more clear with the caring thing. Like, I care this much, so I'm going to be so hard on you because I want you to be the best you that you can be for you.
That's fine. I mean, who doesn't want to hear that?
Yeah. From my perspective, the world needs more pushers, more people that are willing to push the people that are around them. And I'm not talking about, like, physically, like, push, but, like, push them to excel, not necessarily push them to keep them down. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference there.
Well, you're looking at their capabilities, and you see much more than they do at that time. So that's why you push. If you thought that they weren't capable of it, then you probably wouldn't even bother. Yeah. And they probably wouldn't work.
Well, that's part of the thing with like all this stuff with the online gurus. I think the online gurus are garbage. Like, I know I'm not
all garbage.
Not all of them are garbage, but most of them have never done anything in their entire life besides become an online guru. They never started a business. They'd never won a championship. They'd never done something they thought was impossible. They just started telling other people what to do. They never had any challenge in their life of substance, and then they get online and they're like, well, no, I'll teach you how to run a business. I'll be your lifestyle design coach. I'm 20 years old.
Okay.
You've never lived a life, kid.
You sound like you're talking about one specific.
Yeah.
Teeny tiny group of people.
Oh, I'm
just saying, there are a lot of people that have experience and they become a guru because they have that experience. Like, but there are those random, like, select few that kind of happen upon it, and then they have, like, this image of being a guru when they've really not done anything. But people believe they do because they tell them that.
Yeah, and it's bullshit. We had a kid apply at the gym the other day that was 26 years old and said that he had 10 plus years of professional experience. I was like, you've been training people for 10 years? Like,
maybe that's what he thinks.
Yeah, but like I didn't, of course, like, yeah, I'm not going to sit there and argue with him, but I didn't even say anything about it. It just kind of chuckled to myself. I was like, dude, do the math here. You've been training people since you were 16 years old? That's not...
Probably not training people, but in his head he
was working out since he was 16?
Maybe that's what he...
Yeah. Well, he didn't get hired, but to me, like leadership, first rule of leadership, the absolute biggest thing in leadership, and you can disagree with me on this if you want, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, but the courage to go first is the absolute most important thing in a leadership position.
Like being a role model and, like, someone... Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if you want the people that you want, your kids, you want your employees, you want your students to learn more, to work hard, and to be good people. I don't know. Then you better be a great person. You better study and you better work hard. Like, you have to go first for the things that you're trying to say. that you want them to do. Like, to me, you go first. Like, the leader...
You lead by example.
You lead by example. Like, the boss, to me, is like the person that's just screaming out, like, you gotta do this, gotta do this, gotta do this, because they're too scared to actually do it themselves.
Sit behind the desk and be like, man, you're gonna do this or this.
Yeah, because they're too scared to do it themselves, whereas the leader will go out there and do it. And get it done.
Like, what is more admirable as an employee who's doing hard labor? Like, their boss who's willing to get their hands dirty as well. Like, you have to have respect for somebody that is able to do that. Like, they're in their position of power, and they can still lead by example.
They can still jump into the mix and get it done.
It says a lot about
like if
their
it's
work
a restaurant
ethic
manager,
well.
They can jump behind the bar and make drinks. If they're if they're a gym owner, they can jump in and they can train people and they can do the workouts. And if you're a teacher, then you can also continue to go in and continue your education. Like that's what I mean by that.
No, it's super. Like, I think it's important. Not everybody does it as a boss.
I don't think very many people do it. I think hardly anybody does it. Like, from my perspective, like, really, us failing to help ourselves is failing all the people that we lead.
Yeah. I'll scrub toilets. I'll, like, clean stuff. I'll whatever.
Not being above.
I'll do what the person that's coming in on the very bottom has to do on their first day.
100%.
Because I just want them to know, like, nobody's above this.
Yeah.
Like, you can get to a point where you don't have to do it, but...
And this, one of the things that I've said a lot through this, and I've caught myself every time, and I've been meaning to say this whole time, but to me, I don't, like, when I'm with someone, doesn't matter who they are, if I'm with you, if I'm with President of the United States, if I'm with a kindergartner, there is no this. We are equals in that moment.
Wait, in what moment?
We are equals in that moment. We are of the same level.
Oh, when you guys are both...
Like, I might be the leader, pushing forward, but it's not like I'm above or below them. It's not like I'm better or worse than them. Like, maybe President of the United States isn't the right one for Iowa City right now.
Probably not.
Whoever, somebody, King of Kings, whatever it is. Like, to me, you're always equal when you're at that moment. Doesn't matter who you're with.
Okay.
I try to do that. I don't know.
I mean, if you're trying, that's something.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. That says a lot.
What about Yoda? Do or do not.
Do or do not. Okay. I haven't watched those movies in 15 years. So I have no
do or
idea.
do not. There is no try.
I don't
Yoda.
remember much of that.
All right, guys, if you can take the time, hit the share button at the bottom. We haven't been able to... Oh, we do have some comments. It's a little bit too far away for me to read. That's so sad. I have noticed at the back of the gym, the depth of the gym has remained 60 feet from the day we opened to now, which was 7 years ago in November. And there's things at the back of the room that I could have totally read, even if I didn't know what they said. Unintentional rhyming. 7 years ago that I couldn't read now.
Blind.
I'm not blind. I'm like 20/20 now, and I used to be.
Who commented though?
I don't know. Do you want to find out? Yeah. Do you guys have extra time? Joanne says, I think one of the challenges of being an effective leader is figuring out what type of leadership different people need. Some people respond differently to tough versus nurturing than trying to adapt. Yeah,
exactly.
I completely agree. Like me personally, like you should not lead. Even though I kind of am a super assertive, like go person, I don't think that you can boss me around because I'll just tell you, go fuck yourself. Whereas like
you're gonna hit your breaking point a lot sooner than I.
Yeah, but that's probably why I've been fired from every job I've ever had. So there's.
So yeah.
Yeah, but with Rach, you can boss her around. Probably she'd be like, okay, yay, I have such a positive attitude, I'll do it. That sounds great. But me, you lose me right away. But like, if you also tried to like pat my back and tell me how great I'm doing, like I don't care. Like, just let me do my thing. Whereas Rach might like that a little bit more. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna say no to a compliment.
All right, and then no, how do I do this? There we go.
There you go.
And then where's Aaron's? I think Aaron says, I think in communication you have to assess the individual you confront and then confront. Kind of like what we talked about the other night. Treat the person how they want to be treated. Yeah, treat the person how they want to be treated.
To a certain extent.
To a certain extent, obviously.
It depends on the situation.
What do you, like, give me
Well,
one.
there are certain situations where you do have to be tough. But you do have to, I think that's kind of maybe a response to Joanne's. It kind of plays into that. Like,
sure.
You gotta feel out the situation. Like, if you have someone that's brand new, this is their first job, they've never even really gotten criticism.
Yeah.
And you go out, like, right off the bat and start badgering them and, and nagging
them.
Well,
that's kind of like, you're going to speak to your grandma different than you speak to your best buddy, than you speak to a stranger that you just met. We just had somebody new in the gym. This couple came into the gym yesterday that was brand new. So, and I knew that they were super terrified to walk in. So I was like trying to be super welcoming, super building tons of safety. And somebody called me out as soon as they left, like 15 minutes after they left. Somebody else that I was really close with, I gave him a hard time about something. And he goes, "Oh yeah, people that now leave and now you're going to be a jerk." But it was like somebody that's been there for like 6 years. Exactly. We know each other really well. He knew that it was a joke. I would have never said it to probably anybody else in the whole gym. It wasn't really even mean, but it was kind of funny. I didn't really notice how much I had changed from one person to the other, but two different people. What were you going to say?
You gotta feel it out.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you come sit at a bar and you strike up a conversation with a random person. You don't straight off talk about your religion or your views in politics. I'm just saying, like, why would you want to get in a fight before you even know the person's name?
Because Rachel's giving me a lesson in how to be social with strangers right now, because
I see it all the time. And it's just like a slippery slope that just...
I don't do that. What I do is I come in and tend to think, oh, well, let's just talk about whatever. I just treat them like we've known each other forever.
And that's okay. Apparently it doesn't go over very well. That's a good quality as well.
But everybody calls me an asshole.
But there are certain people that take things way beyond offensive. And you have to kind of be wary of that as well. I'm not saying... but just certain topics basically are not good ways to start off a relationship.
Yeah, certain topics stay away from. I agree and disagree. This is one of those just kind of fundamental things of life where I'm like, seriously, it's so stupid. Like, why can't everybody just agree to take responsibility for all of their own bullshit? Like, why would you ever get offended by anything? Like, someone calls you a name. That's on them, not on you. They're probably having a really bad day.
Yeah. Like, they don't really...
Or somebody doesn't agree with you on politics. Like, that's not an argument. That's an opportunity to get in an argument or an opportunity to have discussion. You might learn something really, really cool.
But maybe not, like, first sentence or, like, first 15 minutes. Like, get to know them as a person. That way you guys aren't on a level of, oh, you're a Republican. Ooh, you're a Democrat. Oh, we hate each other now. Like, why would you want to just be like, hey, so what do you do? Or, like, where are you from? Like, then you become relatable to each other and you can have a more well-rounded conversation.
Slash all the nonsense and let's go for it. Not a brawl. I'm talking about like going for like let's have a discussion. Let's get down to the meat of this thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of people I think feel more comfortable in staying shallow and going wide with the conversation. I get exhausted. Like, you talk to me about like 8 different things in one conversation, and I'm like, oh man, this is rough. Like, I can only do the small talking for so long. But you start on one thing and you just start digging into that thing and going deep, and I'm like, man, this is great.
You can do that, but some people hate that.
Yeah, I know.
It's your thing.
INFJs and INFPs love that.
I love digging deep.
INFJs and INFPs tend to love sticking on one topic and going deep with that one topic. That's probably a portion of the reason that the majority of Grit Gym is an NF.
That's odd because I really feel like carrying on a conversation like shallow is exhausting.
Yeah, I know.
Like small talk.
It's so exhausting.
Some people are very good at it though.
It's almost close to miserable. It's like, oh my god.
But then once you get on that one
topic... Some people even stay on this, like they redo the same conversation like 30 different times. And nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do. And if you want to stay shallow and go wide, I have really no problem with that.
That's
go
awesome.
for it. But this, like me personally, like if you did that with a half hour with me, I'm just going to be like, oh, I'm
not very good at that. No.
I'm ready to go to bed.
But that shallow conversation can also turn into deep.
Yes, it can.
Yeah. So you just got to find something that you're kind of both interested or have a passion about or can relate to. Like finding out where someone lives and be like, oh, you live there? Oh, do you know so-and-so? That's another.
Creep status.
That's a conversation. It's not creep.
Where do you live? That's going to be my
Where
first. That's going to be my
is
opening
a
line
common way
too.
to, like, donde está? Where is it? Or what is it? I haven't taken Spanish. Where is it?
Donde está?
Donde tu eres?
Where are you from?
Yeah, exactly.
I know that's where.
One of the first phrases you learn, or one of the first phrases you learn in Spanish is, "Where are you from? What's your name? What do you do?" Or I don't know. Where do you work? But it's a conversation.
I learned Spanish from a guy from southern Mexico, which is basically like learning Spanish from learning English from someone from Mississippi. So I'm not the guy to talk.
No, they have an accent.
And he only went to 8th grade and
they
spelled all of his words wrong, and it was really hard to understand at first.
No, they have a text lingo. That's why you can't really understand. You have to like say it so you can hear what the word is. I know what you're talking about because I see it all the time on our Facebook page.
Oh,
our Facebook page
I was like, why would you hear about this?
Full of Spanish. Like almost 3 posts a day, someone writes about the vine in Spanish. And I'm like, A-K-I, what is that? I never learned that. And it's aquí. Get it? Ha ha. I figured that out the other day. I was like, what is A-K-I?
It means here.
I know, I get it. Aquí means here.
Aquí.
But that's not how you spell it.
No.
Okay.
Or buenos spelled with a V instead of a B.
That's how some people say it, though.
I know. Well, B and B are pretty exchangeable in Spanish anyway. But anyway.
Okay.
We need to be going deep on Spanish and knowing nothing about it, apparently. All these things are going to come out of... I need to get back to doing my learning English.
Yeah, you should.
All right. Are there any leadership words of wisdom before we go?
You say, I don't know.
All right. I just really think like the courage to go first. The more you help you, the more that you have the courage to do your thing, the more you have the courage. Anything that you want somebody else to do, you bet your ass that you better do it first. So if you want your kids, you want your students, you want your employees to read more, well then you better be putting some books in your brain. You want them to learn more, you better be doing that. You want them to work harder, well you better work harder. You want them to, anything that you want them to do, you better do. Like at Grit, I used to say this a lot more than I do now, but I used to say, because I think people got onto it, but I used to say, I will never put you through a workout that I have not been through. 100% accurate. But I also played 3 sports in college, so and I wrestled for 14 years or something like that. There's a lot of really hellacious things that I can, workouts that I could put people through that they'd never walk away from. So me saying that doesn't really mean much. But anyway, a leader has muddy boots. You got to go first. You ready to be done? What do you guys think of that? How'd she do? Write in the comment section below. Please share if you like this. If you hated it, still share it and tell us why you hated it. And then you can criticize us. Crazy, huh? All right, thanks, guys. Really appreciate you being here.